Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing well and keeping safe and being healthy. This is Radhika here again, and this video is going to be about how to handle frustration, anger, rage, um, if you have been in a narcissistic situation, and especially if you have the core wound that I am being disrespected. If that is one of your core wounds, then you are more likely to experience a lot of frustration, which I think is like low level anger. Then comes anger, which is like you're actually maybe like really angry, yelling, something like that. And then the big sister of anger is rage, where you actually like you have completely lost control of your circuitry, of your mechanism, and it's been taken over by this extreme force of survival, which is rage, which is literally the fight or flight. And in the fight mode, you actually have the ability to even like go to the extent of killing someone when you are in that rage mode. um, so we are going to discuss that core wound. So I have a different video which explains the origins of this core wound, so I will link that down below. And in this video we are going to be discussing ways in which you can get over this wound. So I'm going to explain it point by point. These are some of the ways I have found useful to get over this core wound, and also like a lot of my clients have this core wound, or they deal with people who have this core wound. Um, so I have some experience with it, and this is my experience speaking basically. Um, so some of these ways are more like understanding based, because once you understand the situation, it's almost half solved. So the first step is always like first is acknowledgement, then is understanding, and then is steps you take towards solving it. So that's usually everything in your life that you want to fix or you want to sort out in a way will follow this pattern. So now that you're here, I'm assuming you have done step one, which is acknowledging that either in yourself or someone you're with. Um, but this video is more from your perspective if you have this issue. So, the first point I want to discuss is what is your view on anger, frustration, or rage? So, to think about this, you really have to sit down when you have time, or you can stand or walk. But think about this, that what beliefs do you have about anger? So, do you think anger is a good emotion? Do you think it's a bad emotion? Are you accepting towards the emotion of anger in yourself and in others? When others experience anger, do you judge them? Do you feel like, oh, they are being overly dramatic? Or do you feel like they're being crybabies? Or do you feel like whatever is your, or do you judge them that, oh, this here is a person who doesn't have any control over their emotions, etc. So what you have to think is, what are my beliefs about frustration, anger, and rage? um, because what happens is, a lot of times these beliefs that you have could have been uh, molded by the birth family that you grew up in. So, when you were a child and you expressed anger in whatever way, how was it received in your family? Was your family a family where only certain emotions were allowed to be expressed? Or did your parents only express certain emotions? Were they always happy? Were they always cheerful? Were they like these ideal parents who can never be angry, um, or who only like put certain emotions as positive, and if someone goes in the negative spectrum of emotions of frustration, anger, rage, they are extremely judgmental towards those people. So if you had like this kind of an upbringing, you probably repress your anger or frustration, and ultimately, even when you have rage like tendencies, you will suppress them, because since your childhood you have seen that these are not good things to express. So that might be one scenario. Another scenario is if you had like a parent with addiction, or a parent who was not very emotionally stable, or both parents, or a family that was like that. You could have seen anger expressed in very explosive ways, in ways where things broke up after someone expressed their anger, or there were big fights, and after fights people actually separated, or something like that. So what happens is, in this case, you were around people who expressed anger, but because they were so emotionally charged, you yourself might have put anger in your shadow. So you might have experienced that whenever someone expresses anger, it makes things worse. Whenever someone expresses frustration, it makes things worse. And same for rage. So you, at some level, have learned that expressing these emotions is not safe. It breaks relationships, or basically nothing good comes out of it, something like that. Then another scenario could have been where you did express anger, you did express frustration, and your parents or caretakers also did, but they didn't treat you equal to them. So in some way, like, they could express their anger and they could talk about their issues, but when you talked about your issues, they did not acknowledge it. So they just roll their eyes, or they are like, you are too dramatic, you're too sensitive, you have all these issues. And they just basically they did not respond in a way that was helpful to you. Or it could be you had a sibling who was always listened to, acknowledged, their problems were important, but your problems were not important. So there was some inequality, okay, in whatever the behavior was. So this also uh, can result in a feeling that whenever I express my anger, uh, I am not received well. My feelings are not acknowledged. My feelings are not respected. I am disrespected. I am made to feel small or bad in some way, or weak. Whatever was your situation. So you really have to go and understand what are your views on anger. Like, how do you feel when you express your anger? Do you feel shame? Do you feel regret? Do you feel I shouldn't have done that, now I just made things worse? Or do you go into that sadness that again it is proven that no one cares for me, something like that? So you have to go to the depth of your issue, and you have to understand that these are your views about anger that you have picked up, obviously, from your birth family, which was dysfunctional, which was not able to handle their own emotions in a healthy way. And so they could not teach you how to handle your emotions in a healthy way. So that's the first point, is what is your view about frustration, anger, and rage. Then the second point is, acknowledge your frustration, anger, and rage, and thank it. So let's go in this point in a little detail. So frustration, anger, and then rage, which comes from anger, suppressed anger, are mostly at their core emotions that a person or even an animal experiences when their boundaries have been overstepped, and they have been overstepped either by someone else or by themselves. So you also can overstep your own boundaries. It's not just other people who can overstep them. So anger and frustration is really at its core, and even rage is at its core, the ego's way of defending itself in the world. And to live in this world, to actually have an identity in this world, you do need these emotions of frustration, anger, and rage. So these are not bad emotions. These are emotions that exist for a purpose, and you should really thank these emotions, because of these emotions you and me are talking right now. Because humanity would not have survived whatever it has survived without these emotions. Even animals cannot survive without these emotions. Even animals defend themselves when someone oversteps their boundaries, and they actually mark their boundaries. So in them it's very apparent, but in humans it becomes a bit complex, because humans are more complex than animals. So that's the second point. Then the third point is, when did you feel disrespected? So, in this, you really have to go back to your childhood and see all the times when you felt disrespected. Was it a habit your parents had when, like, when people come over, like when something social is happening? Maybe that's a time they get really like anxious or triggered, or they're worried, or something happens in your parents, and as a child, they made you feel disrespected in some way. Or was it a normal happening in your family that you felt disrespected? Or was it when mom or dad were drinking too much? Or was it when something at their work was not going good, when they were extra stressed for money or for something like that? When they were in their survival mode, was that the time they disrespected you more? Was it just a way of them to kind of let out their frustration, or maybe not to deal with you during that time? um, so you have to kind of go back and think about these things, and as you think about these things you will uncover different patterns in your caretaker's behaviors, and you will see how this is actually got nothing to do with you, the feelings that you were made to feel, but it was mostly about your caretaker's life, about how they were feeling during that time, about what they were going through during that time. So a lot of it has nothing to do with you. If it was any other child other than you, they would have behaved the same way, because it was their dysfunctional way of dealing with whatever was happening in their life at that time. So that's the third point. When did you feel disrespected? Then the fourth point is, how did you react or respond when you were feeling disrespected? So if you felt the feeling of disrespect, what did you do? Did you shut yourself up in a room and not talk about it? Did you distract yourself? Did you repress it by uh, some behaviors, like maybe you made mischief, or you ate a lot, or you kind of threw a tantrum, something like that? What was your way of dealing with that feeling of disrespect? Did you complain, but again no one listened and you felt disrespected again after feeling disrespected? So was it like a continuous feeling of not being heard by your caretakers? Did you cry, and did you cry in front of them and get shamed by them? Or did you just give up and trying to talk it out? And did you try to handle it all by yourself? So those are all these are just some ways. Of course there are other ways of dealing with it. So how did you react and respond in your childhood to this continuous feeling of being disrespected? Did you start looking for validation and comfort somewhere outside of your personal caregivers? Did you make up fictional characters in your mind who were supporting you, who were guiding you? Did you read books a lot, etc.? So it could be like thousands of ways that you helped yourself, or maybe you did not help yourself. Maybe you went down some really not so good paths. I mean, you were trying to help yourself, but in a way you were not helping yourself. So you could have gotten into addictions, or just something to distract yourself, which is not very good, like drugs, or porn or alcohol, or I don't know, like gossiping, calling your friends and gossiping, etc. Whatever does not help you progress in a good way can be put in this bucket, basically. So just think about it. How did you respond to it or react to it, and what were your coping mechanisms for it? Then the fifth point is, after doing this, you really have to forgive yourself, because many times in your childhood you might have tried to reach out for help, but you always reached out maybe to the wrong people. Or you might have tried to help yourself, but you always did the not so good thing for yourself, like maybe get addicted or made friends with the wrong company or something like that, like become a bully yourself or something like that, or you bullied a weaker kid. Anything that you did which you regret right now, which you feel that um, was not such a good thing, or maybe you didn't do a bad thing, but you kind of fooled yourself over and over again, trying to look for help, trying to ask for help. And every time you did, your heart was broken and you felt more and more stupid for doing that, for asking for help, or for reaching out, or for talking to someone, for communicating. All those times you must have felt bad for again being vulnerable and not getting what you wanted. So, for all of those times that your heart was broken or you broke someone else's heart, you really have to forgive yourself, because it's okay. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. Sometimes we hurt ourselves in the process, sometimes we hurt others. But through this hurt, we all grow. So, that part of you, the anger that you carry, a part of it is also for yourself. Either it's for putting yourself out there and making a fool of yourself, or it's for like letting your anger go on probably a person who does not deserve it, and for just like dumping all your anger on them. So you really have to forgive yourself for not knowing, for doing the wrong thing, for trusting the wrong people, for putting too much pressure on yourself to handle everything by yourself. For all the mistakes that you have made, you have to forgive yourself. And once you forgive yourself, you have to realize that your anger is valid. Even if you put it out on the wrong person, your anger is valid. Maybe the way you dealt with it was not so great, but your anger is still valid. Your frustration is still valid. Your rage is still valid. So don't shame the emotions, but maybe don't shame, but maybe just forgive yourself for the wrong way in which you have been trying to approach the problem, because we all stumble and then we all learn. So the stumbling part, we always have to forgive ourselves. Don't shame yourself for stumbling. So yeah, that's the fifth point, which is very important because most of the time after healing, you will realize that a big part of the anger that you carried was not for other people, it was for yourself. And that you realize only after you're beyond this anger. So it's a really important point. So I just wanted to kind of state it in a different, in as its own point. Then the sixth point is stories regarding this theme of being like disrespected or not heard or rejected or whatever, or like just being the person who explodes, or always being the person who's like um dramatic or something like that. So if you have stories that go on in your head whenever such a situation comes up, So say you go to a party and someone oops, yeah, sorry about that. Say you go to a party and you're telling a story, and you're in the middle of your story and someone cuts you off, or someone completely ignores your story and starts their own story. You get no acknowledgement back for your story. So if this triggers you, like this situation suddenly triggers you, and as you walk away or as you're in the party, this dialogue starts playing in your mind, that why did he or she do that? I was talking, I was telling my story, how come they just cut me off? Or how come I finished my story but no one even acknowledged my story? They just, moved on to the next topic. No one said a single word about it. Something like that. Or if you say things like, I am never heard, or I am always disrespected, or I am always awkward, or whatever. I'm always at the bad end of the bargain, or something like that. So, whenever the words are like this, right? Never, ever, always, forever, everyone, no one. So, these are like hyperboles, right? In what do you call that? Parts of speech or something like that we learnt in English a long time ago, like I forgot what these are called, like euphemisms and hyperboles, etc. So whenever whenever your brain is speaking in hyperboles like that, that never, ever, always, forever, I will never come back here, something like that, you have to understand that this is a very childlike part of your brain that is getting triggered. Because I have like a 5-year-old kid, and this is something he says all the time. Like if I turn off the TV, if I say that it's bedtime now, you have to sleep, he'll be like, I never get to watch the TV, even if he's seen like half an hour of TV before. But his brain tells him that I will never get to see TV again. Because for children, they don't understand the concept of time. So when they feel an emotion like I'm being denied my TV time, they feel like I'm never getting it. I never get it. So all those hyperboles become really big. And if your brain is going into that mode, it's very possible that when you were 5 or 4 years old, you had this circuit triggered a lot. So when you were 5 or 4 years old, or six, I don't know, maybe even in the sixth year, he will say this. So in those years of your life, maybe you were not acknowledged enough, maybe you were not heard enough. But this friend at the party who has cut you off is not the culprit. This friend in the party does not deserve your anger, because maybe this friend who kind of cut you off, of course they did a bad thing. You should not cut someone off, you should acknowledge what people are saying. But what I'm saying is that not all of us are perfect human beings. So this person might not have actually meant to disrespect you. They might have just thought, oh, the story is over and I want to say this, and they must be waiting to say what they want to say. Because a lot of people are like that, they just want to say what they want to say, they don't want to listen to other people. So maybe this person is that kind of a person. They don't want to listen to you, they just wait for you to finish and then they say what they want to say. So basically, this person is not this person is not ever listening to you. I mean, I'm just assuming that this person is really, like, this is a one off thing that this person is doing. And I'm talking in that case. Or it's a stranger who you met and now you're questioning, like, am I boring? I'm not interesting enough, etc. So, what you have to realize is this person is only triggering a circuit in your brain which was probably programmed in your childhood. And so, this person is just triggering it but they are not the cause of it. The cause is already existing in you. They are just kind of pushing the right button for you to get to that circuit. So yeah, so this is something you felt in your childhood. So just realize that the next time this pattern begins in your head again, the voice starts again, that always, never, and it's talking to you, like trying to get you down. You have to realize and you have to tell this voice that no, maybe I don't think it's not ever, never. Maybe let's just be rational and think, yeah, this one time this person did not listen to me, or this person, they should not have cut me off, but they did. So I do feel angry about that. So what you have to do is you really have to acknowledge your anger, and if it is something you can actually tell, or you can say something about it in that moment, like say you are telling a story and someone cuts you off and you still want to continue, you can just tell them, hey, I'm not done yet, hold on, I have to complete my story. So you will have to build that confidence to actually say it when the moment is right, and that way you will gain more confidence in yourself. If you have let other people, like overstep your boundaries before. So yeah, so that is like stories regarding this theme. That was this point. Then the next point is lifestyle factors. So do you yourself like cross your own boundaries? Do you overwork? Do you overstretch yourself? Do you overdo? Do you overgive? Do you like break your boundaries for eating properly or sleeping properly or exercising properly? Or do you is your brain crossing your boundaries by getting obsessed with certain things, achieving certain things, or gaining certain things? Is your brain making these really big tasks for you that you have to achieve in order to feel good about yourself? So, if you're doing all these things, you have to realize that you might have some lifestyle factors which are kind of feeding into your frustration, anger, and rage. So, you might have some habits that you need to ditch, like if you drink a lot of alcohol, if you have drugs, if you drink a lot of coffee, more than you know is good for you, or a lot of tea, which is also has tannin and other substances, or if you eat a lot of chocolate, whatever gets your nervous system in a high state, those things. Or do you eat like not good food? Do you eat all processed food? Do you not cook properly? Do you keep your surroundings dirty? Do you not clean enough, etc.? So, see, if you are doing all these things, these are somewhere feeding into your feeling that you are not giving yourself acknowledgement or attention. You are not treating yourself right. So, if you have all of these lifestyle factors, believe it, believe me, that they are adding to your anger, frustration, and rage. So, if you want to be rid of your frustration, anger, and rage, you really have to come clean with yourself. No fooling yourself, no making yourself excuses. No matter how small it is, you just have to make the intention of doing everything right by you. So, you have to actually make that promise to yourself and live up to it. And if you fail, forgive yourself, but try again. Don't give up. Stop giving up on yourself. So that is also one of the factors, that if you have really overworked your body, your mind, your spirit, you are just not eating properly, not sleeping properly, it's physically more likely that you're going to get frustrated, angry, and full of rage when the situation is right, if you're overstepping your boundaries too much. So you also have to look at that aspect. Then the eighth way and the last tip, or the last solution I have in this video, is physical ways of dealing with anger. So anger is a very frustration, anger, or rage. These are very quick moving emotions. Okay, so all of these three, they energetically they come from your Manipur chakra. Okay, and they come from your Manipur chakra, and Manipur chakra is which is called as solar plexus. So solar plexus is the chakra which corresponds to the element of fire. So fire is, as you know, it's energetic fire. If you put fire to something, it's energy, and you see the transformation very quickly. So similarly, frustration, anger, and rage are like they go level by level, right? Frustration is moves slowly, but if you're very frustrated for a long time, you get angry. And then anger also, like it manifests itself more in like yelling, etc. And then if you repress anger, or if you hold anger for a long time, it turns to rage. If the situation is made in such a way, if circumstances happen in a particular way, it can very quickly turn into rage. So all these three energies are extremely fast moving. Like when rage happens, you really don't know what can happen in like 5 minutes. You can see a fight break up or something like that. So it's similar to like fire. So if you see fire set on one tree, very quickly the whole forest will start burning, and you will just keep looking. You won't even have time to process what is happening. It will happen so quickly. So what happens is, this energy which is very fast moving is very, what do you say, it's very ideal to transmute it, to change it into another form by doing something which is very fast moving. Or it doesn't even have to be fast moving, but it has to be something with motion and impact. So you can do martial arts. Martial art is amazing for channeling your anger. Anything like taekwondo, karate, jujitsu, kung fu, whatever is your cup of tea, or kickboxing, etc. You can do all of those. Another way is, if you don't want to do martial arts, is dancing. Dancing is also very good if you want to transmute your anger, or jogging, running, cycling, swimming, etc. Anything that gets your heart pumping is very good. And so yeah, that those are good ways to physically transmute your anger into a different form of energy. Yeah, so those are actually all the points I had. And if you go on the community section, there's another way there given there, where if you see, there's a post on an Indian god called Narsimha. He was like half human, half lion, and he's the fourth avatar of Vishnu, and he's like the male representation of divine anger. The female is Kali, and of course we have many other gods and goddesses who represent this, but the most famous one is Kali in the female form, and Narasimha in the male form. Even Shiv, even like when Shiv takes the Rudra avatar, that we say he's in his anger form, where he's Shiva the destructor, because he's also Shiva the creator. So he can also destruct if he can